You can almost feel it coming. The customer's eyes glaze over. Their brain disconnects from the laws of physics. And then it happens. A question so monumentally stupid, it doesn't just annoy you. It makes you question the very concept of a shared reality. We have found one of these brain-breaking events. This isn't a list. It's a medical journal of sanity's final moments. 1. A customer slid a prescription across the pharmacy counter for a powdered medication. He looked the pharmacist dead in the eye and asked, "The instructions say mix this with water, but can I just snort it instead?" The pharmacist's professional smile remained frozen, but inside, his brain was packing a suitcase and filing for a restraining order against humanity. 2. At an auto shop, a customer confidently asked the mechanic, "Can you check my blinker fluid? I think it's running low." The mechanic, holding a greasy wrench, just stared blankly. His mind blue-screened for a solid 10 seconds while trying to locate blinker fluid on a diagram that simply doesn't exist. 3. A woman at a bank teller's window said, "I'd like to withdraw $10, but can you give it to me in a 50?" The teller's brain entered a state of quantum confusion, a place where basic arithmetic goes to die, as she tried to comprehend a transaction that was both physically and financially impossible. 4. A user called the IT help desk in a panic. "I just deleted a very important file," he explained, "and then I emptied the recycle bin. Can you please tell me what time the garbage truck comes by to empty it so I can go get it back?" The tech's brain just melted and leaked out through his headset. 5. During a fire alarm and full building evacuation, a hotel guest stopped a frantic employee in the smoke-filled hallway. He calmly asked, "Since we're being evacuated, does this mean the breakfast buffet is free tomorrow?" The employee's fight-or-flight response just froze, utterly broken by a level of audacity that defied the laws of survival. 6. A woman walked up to the seafood counter, pointed at the live lobsters in the tank, and asked, with genuine concern, "Are your lobsters farm to table?" The employee wanted to say, "Ma'am, the table is about 10 feet that way and they're about to make the trip. You want to watch?" 7. In a clothing store, a man was trying on a shirt in front of a three-way mirror. He flagged down an employee, pointed at his own reflection, and asked with sincere curiosity, "If I buy this shirt, does it come with the other two guys?" The employee had to gently explain that the store was not, in fact, selling portals to a parallel universe. 8. A customer at a garden center held up a packet of Venus flytrap seeds. She looked the staff member in the eye and asked, "If I plant these, will they eat my cat?" Her question wasn't just dumb. It was a screenplay for a horror movie that no one, especially the cat, wanted to see. 9. A man called a pizza place to order delivery. After confirming the order, the employee asked for the address. The man replied, "I don't want to give you my address. Can't you just find me using the GPS in my phone?" The employee just stared at the phone, wondering when he was promoted to secret agent. 10. A woman brought a completely empty cake box back to the bakery. She looked the manager in the eye and asked, "I ate this one, but I didn't like the flavor. Can I exchange it for the chocolate one?" The manager's brain was now officially accepting applications for a new universe to live in, one without cake-related paradoxes. 11. After a 10-minute phone call with tech support, the agent instructed the user to right-click. A long pause followed before the user asked, "With which finger?" The agent's soul just floated out of his body, shook its head, and went to get a coffee, leaving the mortal shell to handle the call. 12. At the post office counter, a woman tried to hand the clerk an unsealed, empty jar. When asked what she was shipping, she replied, "The smell of my grandma's house." Her follow-up question was the killer. "Do you charge by the sniff?" The clerk's brain officially tendered its resignation. 13. Holding a single banana at the grocery checkout, a customer asked with deep concern, "Is this gluten-free?" The cashier, whose will to live was already on back order, just scanned the banana and said, "As far as I know, yes." Common sense had apparently been recalled by the manufacturer. 14. While his car was inside the automated car wash, a man ran back to the attendant's booth, soaking wet, and yelled through the window, "Does this wash the inside too?" The attendant just watched the soap cannons fire, wondering if the customer's brain was also getting a high-pressure rinse. 15. Standing in front of a Picasso in an art museum, a tourist flagged down a guard. He pointed at the abstract masterpiece and asked, "Did the artist get in trouble for this?" The guard's spirit just sighed, imagining Picasso being put in timeout for not coloring inside the lines of reality. 16. A man at a hardware store picked up a yardstick. He studied it for a moment before asking an employee, "Do you sell these in metric yards?" The employee's internal monologue was just a long, dial-up modem screech as he tried to process the geometry of that question. It was impossible. 17. The server had just explained the specials. A customer nodded thoughtfully, then asked, "I know what the soup of the day is, but what was the soup of yesterday?" The server's smile didn't falter, but her brain was busy calculating the odds that time travel had just become a lunch option. 18. At the airport security checkpoint, a passenger argued with a TSA agent about his frozen bottle of water. His final desperate question was, "If water is a liquid, but my water is frozen solid, isn't it technically a weapon?" The agent was too tired to even say yes. He just wanted it to end. 19. Inside a packed bookstore, a customer brought a thick hardcover novel to the counter. He looked the clerk in the eye and asked, "If I buy this, how do I turn on the audio?" The clerk had to explain that a book is the acoustic, unplugged version of a story. The man seemed disappointed. 20. After returning a very dead houseplant, a woman was issued a refund. She then held up the pot of dry soil and asked the nursery employee, "So, do I get to keep the dirt?" The employee's brain, which had already seen too much, just whispered, "Yes, ma'am. That suffering is all yours now." 21. The question came from a man in a very expensive suit, looking at a $20,000 Rolex. He turned to the jeweler and asked, "Does this one tell time better than a cheaper watch?" The jeweler had to summon all his strength not to reply. "Sir, it tells the same time, just with more judgment." 22. In the quietest section of the library, a student asked the librarian, "Can you show me where the fiction books are that are actually true?" The librarian's mind got stuck in a logical loop so profound, she briefly forgot how the Dewey Decimal System worked, or the definition of the word fiction. 23. A hopeful couple at a pet store pointed to a tiny golden retriever puppy. The woman leaned in and asked the employee, with tears in her eyes, "Do you have any that will stay this size forever?" The employee, now the official dream crusher, had to explain the cruel, linear nature of time. 24. Looking at a bin of seedless watermelons, a customer flagged down a produce clerk. "I see they're seedless," she said, "but how do you plant them for next year?" The clerk's brain just left the building to go lie down in a dark room. He was done with the paradoxes of modern agriculture. 25. The bartender was already on edge. A customer ordered, "Can I get a Long Island iced tea but make it a virgin?" The bartender paused, wiped the counter, and replied, "So, you want a glass of sour mix with a splash of Coke?" The customer beamed. "Exactly." Logic had been escorted from the premises. 26. At the DMV, a man was told he needed a valid photo ID to get his new driver's license. He looked at the clerk, utterly bewildered, and asked, "But how can I get a photo ID if this is the photo ID I'm here to get?" The clerk just pointed to the sign. It was the serpent eating its own tail. 27. "I want you to Photoshop this picture of me," the client told the photographer. "Can you make me look about 20 pounds thinner, but without actually changing how I look?" The photographer's design software crashed, his camera lens cracked, and his understanding of reality filed for divorce. 28. After buying a brand new internet modem, the customer held up the box and asked the electronics store employee, "Does this come with Google already on it, or is that a separate purchase?" The employee just nodded slowly, realizing he didn't get paid enough to explain what the internet is. 29. During a 3D screening of Jurassic Park, a woman leaned over and whispered loudly to the usher, "Excuse me, are these dinosaurs real?" The usher, whose job was mostly about cleaning up popcorn, was suddenly promoted to paleontologist and reality therapist. He was not prepared for this. 30. A person walked up to a free sample station at a warehouse club, took a small piece of cheese, ate it, and then held up the empty paper cup to the employee. "Excuse me," he asked with a straight face. "Can I get a price check on this?" The employee's will to live was officially priceless, and also gone. 31. Holding her brand new smartphone, a woman turned to the store clerk and asked, "If I call my own number, will the line be busy?" The clerk's brain attempted to solve this philosophical riddle, but instead, it just developed a migraine shaped like a Schrodinger's cat holding a telephone. 32. The waiter came to clear the plates from a fully eaten meal. The customer stopped him and asked, with the gravity of a legal inquiry, "Just for future reference, do you charge extra for chewing?" The question was so far out of left field, the waiter wondered if he'd accidentally slipped into another dimension. 33. In a Miami hardware store, as a hurricane approached, a tourist asked the man boarding up the windows, "Excuse me, do you know if this is going to be a wet hurricane?" The employee just pointed at the sky, then the ocean, then back at the man, his expression a silent scream for help. 34. A new member at the gym approached a personal trainer. "I have a question," he said. "If I only work out my right arm, will my left arm get jealous and start working out on its own?" The trainer's biology degree began to smolder and turn to ash in the filing cabinet of his mind. 35. At a concert merch stand, a fan pointed to a t-shirt with all the tour dates printed on the back. He looked at the seller and asked, "If I buy the shirt, is that like a season pass to get into all these shows?" The sheer, unadulterated optimism was almost beautiful in its wrongness. 36. This one comes from a police officer. After pulling someone over for driving on the shoulder, the driver asked, "Isn't this the carpool lane?" The officer's mind just went blank. He had to take a moment to remember that shoulders belong on people and roads, not in carpool arrangements. 37. Inside a fishing supply store, a customer held up an expensive, brightly colored lure. He turned to the old man behind the counter and asked, "Does this lure come with a guarantee to catch fish?" The old man just chuckled and said, "Son, if it did, do you really think I'd be working here?" 38. A man was testing out a mattress in a store. After lying completely still for 15 minutes, he sat up, looked at the salesperson and asked, "If I accidentally fall asleep here for a few hours, do I have to pay for the whole night?" The salesperson's commission-fueled smile began to twitch. 39. At the deli counter, a customer requested a pound of honey-baked ham. Her follow-up question was the showstopper. "Can you slice it thin enough so it doesn't have any calories?" The deli worker just gripped his slicer, pondering the physics-defying diet plan he had just been asked to create. 40. A man was pushing with all his might on a glass door, clearly marked with a giant pull sign. After a full minute of struggling, he stopped, turned to a passing employee, and asked out of breath, "Is this door broken or something?" The employee's faith in literacy was officially declared dead at the scene. 41. Looking at a smart thermostat, a customer asked the Home Depot employee, "If I set the temperature to 68 degrees, will it also make my living room feel like it's 1968 in here?" The employee's brain just served up a 4 out of 4 error as it tried to locate a feature that wasn't just smart, but a full-blown time machine. 42. After finishing a crème brûlée, a man at a fancy restaurant flagged down his waiter. He pointed to the empty dish and asked, "That was fantastic. Can I get a refill on just the burnt part?" The chef's soul, which had soared making the dessert, just nosedived directly into a deep fryer. 43. At a winery tasting room, a woman swirled her glass of Cabernet Sauvignon, took a thoughtful sip, and asked the sommelier, "If I drink enough of this, will I start speaking French?" The sommelier's encyclopedic knowledge of viticulture was instantly replaced by a vivid mental image of this woman yelling "Bonjour" at a croissant. 44. The tailor looked at the leather jacket the customer had brought in. The customer's request was simple, yet impossible. "I know it needs to be taken in, but can you also remove the bad memories I have in this jacket?" The tailor's brain just hung a sign on the door that said, "Gone fishing for sanity." 45. While looking at their own x-ray, a patient turned to the radiologist with a look of intense curiosity. "I can see all my bones," he said. "But can you tell me if you can see my soul in there, or is that extra?" The radiologist's medical degree began to quietly curl up and turn to dust in its frame on the wall. 46. In the middle of the vast, empty ocean on a cruise ship, a passenger stopped a crew member. He pointed out at the endless blue horizon and asked with genuine confusion, "Excuse me, what time does the midnight buffet start?" The crew member's internal clock just shattered into a million useless pieces. 47. A young guy was admiring an expensive electric guitar in a music store. He turned to the clerk and asked, "If I plug this into an outlet in Europe, will it automatically start playing with a British accent?" The clerk's mind just pictured the guitar demanding tea and complaining about the weather. 48. After buying a large detailed globe of the Earth, a customer paused at the checkout. She looked at the clerk with a dead serious expression and asked, "This is great, but is this globe drawn to scale?" The employee briefly pondered where one would even park the box for a planet-sized globe. 49. At a bakery, a woman stared intently at a dozen donuts. She finally looked up at the baker and asked, "Hypothetically, if I eat these in a perfect circle, do the calories cancel each other out?" The baker's understanding of both math and physics went on an immediate and permanent vacation. 50. At the car dealership, a man sat in a brand new SUV equipped with the latest navigation system. He turned to the salesperson and asked, "Does the GPS know where I want to go or just where I tell it to go?" The salesperson's brain stalled, trying to process a request for telepathic directions. 51. The question came from a woman at a high-end makeup counter. She gestured to the rows of foundation and asked the artist, "These are nice, but do you have a shade that matches my personality?" The artist briefly considered offering her the glittery, chaotic one reserved for bachelorette parties. 52. During a consultation, a potential client asked his lawyer, "If I legally change my name to Cash, will that make all my checks automatically valid?" The lawyer's legal pad burst into flames as all the laws of commerce and identity simultaneously screamed in agony and ran for the exits. 53. A man on a treadmill flagged down a gym employee. He was sweating, out of breath, and deeply concerned. "I have a question," he panted. "If I run backwards on this thing, will I start gaining weight?" The employee's biology degree just packed its bags and quietly left his brain forever. 54. A customer held up a high-end camera in an electronics shop. He examined it, then turned to the sales associate and asked, "Will using this camera automatically make my life look more interesting to other people?" The associate wanted to reply, "Sir, this is a camera, not a personality transplant." 55. At the veterinarian's office, a concerned dog owner asked the vet, "I know you can neuter him, but is there a procedure where you can just neuter his bark?" The vet's mind was flooded with images of a dog silently opening its mouth as subtitles appeared in the air. He was not prepared for this. 56. The setting. A quiet art supply store. A student held up a tube of black paint and asked the clerk, "Excuse me, does this black paint come in a lighter shade?" The employee's understanding of the entire color spectrum simply short-circuited and his soul rebooted in grayscale. 57. After trying on a pair of jeans, a customer came out of the fitting room and approached the tailor. "These are too short," she said. "Can you make them longer, but without adding any fabric?" The tailor's measuring tape spontaneously coiled into a question mark and then dissolved into dust. 58. Halfway through a movie, a man got up and found an usher in the hallway. He complained, "The people in the movie are talking too quietly. Can you go in there and ask them to speak up?" The usher's job description did not include providing feedback to fictional characters. His brain just buffered. 59. At the optometrist's office, a patient was trying on his new glasses. He looked around the room, then at the doctor, and asked with hopeful eyes, "These are great for my vision, but can you add a lens that lets me see the future?" The optometrist's medical license began to vibrate ominously. 60. A woman at a photo printing kiosk flagged down an employee. She pointed at the screen and said, "I've uploaded all the pictures from my phone." Then she held up her device with a worried look and asked, "Is my phone empty now? Do I have to go take more pictures?" The employee's brain just developed a fatal exception error. 61. A tourist at the Grand Canyon walked up to a park ranger, pointed at the vast chasm, and asked, "This is amazing. But do you guys drain this and clean it at the end of the season? The Ranger's brain detached from its moorings and tumbled silently into the billion-year-old abyss. 60U. On a phone call to a pizza place, a customer specified, "I'd like my pizza cut into 8 slices instead of the usual 6. The employee agreed. The customer then added, "Great, I'm on a diet. Can you make sure those 8 slices have fewer calories than 6 would have?" Math just died a little. 63. At a butcher shop, a man was buying 2 thick T-bone steaks. He paid, and as the butcher handed him the package, he asked, "Are these pre-killed?" The butcher, who had been holding knives his entire adult life, had never felt more compelled to simply go home and lie down forever. 64. The customer service line at a furniture store received a call. "I bought a bed from you last week," the man said. "I was just wondering, is it okay if I sleep on it at night?" The agent on the phone was left speechless, pondering a world where beds had designated operating hours. 65. A woman at a weather station open house cornered a meteorologist. She pointed at a satellite image of a hurricane and asked, with genuine scientific curiosity, "If you guys just aimed a bunch of giant fans at that, would it go away?" The meteorologist's PhD in atmospheric science wept silently. 66. Inside a busy coffee shop, a customer asked the barista, "Can I get an iced latte, but can you make it with hot ice?" The barista's understanding of thermodynamics just packed a small bag and boarded a train heading in the opposite direction of this conversation. It was never seen again. 67. A man walked into a passport photo studio, sat down, and told the photographer, "I need a new passport photo, but can you make me look like I'm on vacation already?" The photographer's camera lens fogged up with the sheer impossibility of capturing a future that hadn't happened yet. 68. After a flight, a passenger stopped the pilot as he was leaving the cockpit. "Great flight," she said, "but I have one question. Do you get to keep the plane when you're done?" The pilot, a seasoned veteran of the skies, felt his wings metaphorically fall off. This was a new altitude of dumb. 69. A person walked up to the information desk at a massive shopping mall. They looked at the directory, then at the employee, and asked, "I see the 'You are here' arrow on the map, but how does it know?" The employee's soul just floated away to join the 'You are here' arrow in its all-knowing bliss. 70. The call came into a city's public works department. A citizen asked, in a tone of mild annoyance, "I see you're paving my street today. Can you make sure you do it quietly? I'm working from home." The sound of a 1,000-ton asphalt roller suddenly seemed like a gentle whisper in comparison. 71. This one comes from a haunted house actor in full monster makeup. A teenager, after being thoroughly terrified, stopped him mid-scare and asked, "This seems like a cool job, but do you guys get dental?" The monster's professional snarl faltered as his brain tried to picture filling out insurance forms. 72. The request came to a florist from a man in a panic. "I need a bouquet that says, 'I'm sorry I set your kitchen on fire,'" he explained, then leaned in and asked, "But can you make it also ask if I can have my toaster back?" The florist's mind tried to design an arrangement that could negotiate a hostage crisis. 73. Standing before a towering T-Rex skeleton at a museum, a visitor asked the paleontologist giving the tour, "This one is amazing, but did he know any of the other dinosaurs in the other rooms?" The paleontologist's degree in prehistoric life began to quietly weep in a corner of her mind. 74. "I've locked my keys in my car," a man explained to the locksmith. He then posed a question that defied all logic. "Can you make me a new key, but only one that works from the inside?" The locksmith's tools seemed to droop with sadness as they contemplated their own impossible purpose. 75. A nervous client sat down in the tattoo artist's chair. "I want my first tattoo," she said, "but I'm not sure. Can you do one that's permanent but only for about 6 months?" The tattoo needle buzzed in confusion, its tiny brain unable to process the request for a temporary state of permanence. 76. After the escape room timer ran out, the game master entered to find the team had solved nothing. One player approached him and asked, "We didn't get out, so does that mean we live here now?" The game master just sighed and pointed to the door that had been unlocked the entire time. 77. A 911 dispatcher received a call from a man who whispered, "I think there's a monster under my bed." The dispatcher, trained for emergencies, asked if he was a child. The man replied, "No, I'm 32. Is that too old to be scared?" The dispatcher's crisis response training had not prepared her for this. 78. The dog groomer was trimming a poodle's ears. The owner watched intently and asked, "While you're at it, can you make his bark a little less annoying? Maybe a lower pitch?" The groomer paused, clippers in hand, wondering if she was now expected to be a canine voice coach as well. 79. On a construction site, a bystander flagged down a worker operating a massive bulldozer. He shouted over the engine noise, "If I stand right here, will you be able to see me?" The construction worker's survival instinct screamed as he imagined the paperwork involved in answering that question wrong. 80. A bride-to-be was meeting with her wedding planner. She had a very specific, very important question. "After I throw the bouquet, do I have to marry the person who catches it?" The wedding planner's meticulously organized binder trembled with the sheer force of this misunderstanding. 81. The scene. A high-end cheese shop. A customer sampled a piece of pungent, aged gorgonzola. His eyes watered, he coughed, and then he asked the cheesemonger, "This is very strong. Do you have one that tastes less like cheese and more like, not cheese?" 82. During a CPR training class, a participant raised his hand. "I understand the chest compressions," he said, "but after we bring the person back, are we responsible for their happiness?" The instructor's CPR dummy seemed to gain a look of existential dread on its plastic face. 83. The skydiving instructor was doing his final safety check. A first-time jumper looked at the vast emptiness below and asked with a tremor in his voice, "If I change my mind on the way down, is there a way to come back up?" The instructor's faith in humanity just leapt out of the plane without a parachute. 84. A man held up two identical-looking apples in the produce aisle. He flagged down an employee and asked, "Which one of these would you say is the appleist?" The employee's brain just entered a state of philosophical meltdown, trying to quantify the very essence of appleness. 85. A tourist visiting London stood staring at Big Ben. She turned to a local and asked, "It's beautiful, but is the time it shows in English, or do I need to convert it?" The local just blinked, his mind utterly broken by the concept of a clock needing a translation. 86. A man walked into a music store holding a smartphone. He approached the clerk and asked, with a look of genuine technical inquiry, "I downloaded a lot of new songs last night. Can you tell me if I need to let my phone rest for a bit so it doesn't get too heavy?" The clerk's brain just left his body to go listen to some very, very light jazz. 87. At a science museum's tornado exhibit, a guest watched the vortex spin. She turned to the guide and asked, "I see how you make them, but where do you store all the wind when the museum is closed?" The guide's understanding of atmospheric pressure just politely excused itself and left the building. 88. The customer service call was from a man who had just bought a new tent. "I set it up in my living room," he said, "but it's not getting any warmer inside. Is the heater part sold separately?" The agent on the line just stared at the wall, picturing a tent with a thermostat. 89. A person brought a broken toaster back to the store. "It doesn't work," they said. The clerk asked, "Did you try plugging it in?" The customer looked offended and replied, "Why would I do that? Isn't it supposed to be wireless?" The clerk's soul slowly began to toast itself to a crisp. 90. "My Wi-Fi signal is very weak," a man complained to his internet provider. "I live in a basement apartment. Can you guys just make the internet heavier so it sinks down to my computer?" The technician on the phone felt his grasp of physics loosen and float away like a helium balloon. 91. A woman walked up to the public library's front desk. "I've read all your books," she announced proudly. The librarian, stunned, asked what she meant. The woman replied, "Well, not all of them, but can you just tell me how the story ends?" The librarian's purpose in life began to buffer. 92. A woman called the appliance store's helpline, frustrated with her new microwave. "I put my food in and set the timer," she explained, "but nothing is happening. Can you tell me where the pilot light is so I can try lighting it?" The technician on the line felt his knowledge of modern technology flicker and die. 93. At a farm stand, a city dweller pointed to a row of corn on the cob. He turned to the farmer and asked, with genuine curiosity, "Are these grown locally or do you have to import them from the grocery store?" The farmer's connection to the good earth was momentarily severed by this question. 94. During a live symphony performance, an attendee flagged down an usher. She whispered, "This is lovely, but can you ask the violin section to play Happy Birthday for my friend?" The usher's appreciation for classical music just packed its bags and eloped with a death metal band. 95. A new hire at an office was setting up his computer. He called over the manager and asked, "I see the recycle bin on the desktop, but where is the office's actual trash can located?" The manager had to explain that one of them was for digital files and the other was for, actual trash. 96. Holding a can of air freshener, a customer at a discount store asked the employee, "The can says fresh linen scent. If I spray this on my clothes, do I still need to do my laundry?" The employee's will to live was officially declared out of stock and would not be replenished. 97. The driving instructor sat calmly in the passenger seat. The student driver, approaching a red light, asked with rising panic, "I know I have to stop, but do I have to use the brake pedal or will the car just know?" The instructor's emergency brake suddenly felt woefully inadequate. 98. A woman walked into a police station with a folder full of ruined picnic photos. She slammed it on the desk and asked the sergeant with furious conviction, "I'd like to press charges against the weather for what it did last Sunday. Who do I speak to about getting a restraining order?" 99. The call came into a psychic's hotline. The caller whispered, "I have a question, but I'm too embarrassed to ask it." The psychic waited patiently before the caller finally asked, "Do you know what my question is?" The psychic's crystal ball just fogged over with secondhand embarrassment. 100. An eccentric-looking man walked into an antique shop. He browsed for a while, then approached the owner and asked, in a conspiratorial whisper, "I love your collection, but do you happen to have any antiques from the future?" The shop owner's sense of linear time just dissolved into a puddle on the floor. 101. This is it. The final boss of dumb questions. In a grocery store, a shopper held up a carton of a dozen eggs. She flagged down a teenage stock boy, pointed to the carton, and asked with complete sincerity, "Excuse me, can you tell me which one of these has the chicken in it?" A full system crash. End of program. And that's the evidence. Now, for the real debate. If an employee, after hearing a question like that, calmly responds with, "I genuinely need you to walk me through the logic that led to that question," should that be considered a fireable offense or a heroic act of public service? Unleash hell in the comments. And if your brain needs to recover from that, hit like and subscribe for your next dose.